Hello YouTube, Sean Bradley here, and today I will be reviewing Detroit, the new film from writer Mark Boal and director Kathryn Bigelow. The plot is set during the 12th Street riots in Detroit, Michigan, which was started when the mostly white police department raided an unlicensed club filled with African American patrons. The city descends into chaos as the persecuted African Americans begin to loot stores and destroy public property, prompting the assistance of the Michigan National Guard. The center of the narrative takes place at the Algiers Motel when Larry Reed and Fred Temple, played by Algee Smith and Jacob Latimore, two members of a professional R&B group known as the Dramatics, who go to the motel for refuge after their tour bus is attacked by rioters. During an incident in one of the rooms involving a starter pistol, the place is swarmed by the National Guard, including a trio of racist police officers led by Philip Cross, played by Will Poulter, who mistake the incident for a sniper attack. Cross and his trio, with the assistance of black security guard Melvin Dismukes, played by John Boyega, try to get to the root of the problem, while Dismukes is forced to bear witness to Cross's brutality towards the suspects. But when things go too far, resulting in the deaths of 3 people and the officers on murder charges, Dismukes begins to see the corruption of the justice system. This film is brilliant and very effective, but before we get into that, let's go into Kathryn Bigelow's direction. Kathryn Bigelow began her career working with the Art and Language Collective. There she began a short film called The Setup in 1978, which found favour with filmmaker Milos Forman, who was teaching at Columbia University at the time, and which Bigelow had later submitted as part of her MFA at Columbia. Her first film was the 1982 biker film The Loveless, which she had co-directed with Monty Montgomery and had starred Willem Dafoe in his first starring role. She had followed up the film with Near Dark in 1987 before spawning a trilogy of action films consisting of Blue Steel, the original version of Point Break, and Strange Days. That film was a commercial failure. Furthermore, many had attributed the creative vision to her ex-husband, the film's writer and producer James Cameron, thus diminishing Bigelow's perceived influence on the film. Her next film after that was The Weight of Water, which despite premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2000, was not given an official release in the United States until 2002, the same year that Bigelow released K-19 The Widowmaker, which fared poorly at the box office, received mixed reactions from critics, and got an aggregate score of 58 on Metacritic. However, Bigelow returned to form with 2008's modern war film The Hurt Locker, which won Best Picture at the 82nd Academy Awards and Best Director for Bigelow, making her the first woman to win in that category. Not only that, but she beat out her ex-husband, who was nominated that year for Avatar. For her next project, Bigelow had reteamed with her Hurt Locker screenwriter and producer Mark Boal for a film centered around the December 2001 Battle of Tora Bora and the long unsuccessful efforts to capture Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden in the region. The project was about to begin filming when the news had broke that on the 1st of May 2011, Bin Laden had been killed by Navy SEAL Team 6 in his compound in Abbottabad in Pakistan. The project was shelved and the two started from scratch, redirecting their focus on the film that eventually became Zero Dark 30, which portrayed the entire manhunt for Bin Laden, ending with his 2011 death. Out of all of her films, prior to seeing Detroit, I have only seen The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, and out of the both of them, I liked The Hurt Locker better. The Hurt Locker was a film that is tense in its action sequences and enveloping in its cinematography. It did a lot with its runtime and gave a suspenseful and adrenalizing look at the bomb disposal unit. Zero Dark 30, which despite having good performances, including a suspenseful climax taking place in the Bin Laden compound, was too long, with many of the sequences involving a lot of talking and a lot of sitting around. Detroit has an opening animated sequence that sucks us into the world of the film, explaining about how segregation came to be in the year of 1967 and the trouble that African Americans had to go through in a country that had mostly white police officers. Like her two previous films, Bigelow employs a documentary feel to her films, bringing out the handheld cameras. There's not a static shot, as far as I know, in this film. The handheld shooting is meant to represent the chaos that the characters are going through, as well as the many other persecuted black people at the time. However, the handheld may be too shaky and not concentrated enough, as it just zooms back and forth between the characters and it captures their sides when they're going in for a close-up. It is supposed to be immersive and is meant to have a documentary feel, but they could have had it not too shaky. The main focus of the film is on the incident at the Algiers Motel, which is what this film is based upon, and the trial that follows. And there is a fair amount of building up to the event with the characters of Larry and Fred, who along with the dramatics are forced to abort their performance at a music hall minutes before they go on stage, due to the police shutting down the hall and the band being forced to leave the city. When they get to the Algiers, they meet two white girls named Karen and Julianne, played by Kaitliyn and Hannah Murray, and one thing leads to another, which ends up with the police showing up at the door. The performances in the film are terrific, with the standout performance being Will Poulter as Philip Cross, the leader of the racist trio of police officers who rules with an iron fist. Cross is a character that is very cunning in his pursuit of the suspect behind the suspected sniper attack, but he only sees the badness of the African Americans. Like, for example, there is a scene when they first arrive at the Algiers and Cross shoots one of the black patrons of the motel dead, and then afterwards he'd leave a knife or something like that to make it look like that person was trying to attack him and that he was shooting him in self-defense. And he'd be remorseless in his attempts to get a confession, involving dragging suspects into another room, shooting at the wall, and making them lie down on the ground, quiet, giving the others outside the impression that that man is dead, threatening to kill the guy for real if he doesn't comply. The way that he is ruthless in the aftermath of the incidents involving the trial that he and his two officers and his mutes are standing, he looks at the victims that are testifying against him with a smile of remorselessness on his face. That smile is a bit frightening, intimidating his witnesses with a look as if he thinks he'll get away with it. It classes as a scary performance. I remember back when Cary Fukunaga was involved in the upcoming adaptation of It, that he had cast Poulter in the role of Pennywise, the dancing clown.
So Poulter has the potential to be a villain in a film, and he may even get nominated for this one. John Boyega does well as Melvin Dismukes.
Despite being black, he tries to make peace with the National Guard, and there's a scene where he's pouring them coffee.
The film introduces him getting home from his job in a factory, only to be called out to his second job as a security guard at a shop in Detroit. He is an overworked man who is trying to make the best of his situation and feeling like he's not being taken seriously because of his race. Despite being the lead in the film, he is outbeaten by Will Poulter, who pretty much steals the show.
Algee Smith gives a great performance as Larry Reed, who is an aspiring performer whose life is halted by the trauma that he is put through by Cross and the entire justice system.
The third act of this film kept me interested. It goes into the aftermath of the Algiers incident and explores the fates of the officers involved. I'm not going to spoil how the film ends, so you will have to find that one out for yourself. This film is probably relevant in this day and age due to recent incidents like the shootings in America of black teenagers by white police officers.
Like, for example, the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the shooting of Trayvon Martin by George Zimmerman, and the recent protests in Charlottesville by white supremacists.
This is another film that was released this year that also deals with how African Americans are portrayed in today's society.
Another being Jordan Peele's Get Out, which showed how this modern generation picked up their manners and dialects from urban civilizations.
While this film does not go over the top with the N-word,
like you would see in a Quentin Tarantino film,
it is subtle in how racist the Caucasian society was back then in their inferences of the African American people. Anthony Mackie has a role as
a war veteran who is accused of being a pimp after being caught in a motel room with Karen and Julianne. Even when he gives Cross his ID, Cross tells Mackie that he thinks it is fake.
This film even shows how corrupt the authorities were at the time. The National Guard even knew Cross was a racist psycho, and they buried their heads in the sand about it. The police knew these people were guilty, but didn't do jack about it. The soundtrack on the film is great, with a nice choice of selection from artists like Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, and all of these other Motown bands, as well as music from that period.
Detroit premiered on the 25th of July at the Fox Theatre in Detroit, Michigan, which plays a role in the events of the film, and received a limited release in America on the 28th of July of this year, a day after the 50th anniversary of the riot's end. It has rave reviews from critics and an 82% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with an average rating of 7.5 out of 10. It could be up there with Dunkirk as a potential frontrunner for the 90th Academy Awards.
So to sum up, Detroit is an amazing and very effective film, delving into the subjects of police brutality and police corruption, and also racism. It deals with racism. The direction of Kathryn Bigelow is very in-depth, with the cinematography giving the piece of a documentary feel. The acting is brilliant, with a standout, show-stealing performance by Will Poulter. It is a film that is just very thought-provoking, and it stays in your mind long after the credits have stopped rolling. I give this film a 9 out of 10. This is Sean Bradley, signing out. I'll see you later. Bye! Hey guys, I'm back to talk to you about 2 short films that I have been a part of. First off, I'm going to talk about Inside.
This short psychological thriller was written and directed by Anton Arenko. I worked as a production assistant, as a clapper loader, holding the clapperboard in front of the camera before every take. I enjoyed working on the film, enjoyed the atmosphere and getting to know the cast and the other crew members. I watched the finished product and Anton has done an amazing job with the film.
The second film that I was also involved in was
Helheim, a drama that was set in the Viking era. I just watched the film and I thought it was okay. I worked on that short also as a production assistant. In this one, I was tasked with shooting behind the scenes footage of the film for the director Bettina Toth. Working on the set was okay, but it wasn't fulfilling. I have yet to edit the footage that I shot, but I will get around to it. Helheim came out last April and was recently screened last July at the High Peak Independent Film Festival, where it was nominated for Best Student Film. The finished product looks professional with its lighting and cinematography.
I recommend that you check these 2 films out. Your views are what will help us aspiring artists to make it in the industry. These people have worked long and hard, and it is your duty as a human being to give them a chance. I'm going to leave a link to both of these films down below in the description box, along with their IMDb pages. If you could just give them a rating on IMDb, and if you want, press like on the YouTube videos and comment on them, that would be great. This is Sean Bradley signing out. I'll see you later. Bye.